Winter is one of the best times to prune, but it's also where people make the most mistakes. I'm here today with Ryan, our install manager and resident horticulturalist, to explain the do's and don'ts and the benefits of winter pruning.
Yeah, today we're going to go through what you should prune in the winter, what maybe you should hold off on, and why we choose winter as one of the best times to prune here in the Pacific Northwest. In general, winter pruning encourages growth once the spring comes and the buds break. In the summer and in the fall, we often prune to reduce the amount of growth. Yeah, so we have an example of a bad pruning cut here. It seems like what happened was this piece was cut to make it shorter, but the lateral branch that came off was too small to support the amount of weight on this branch, and so it has broken bud all throughout the rest of the branch and created some strange branching angles. What happens with heavy tree branches when you prune them is if you cut out here, sometimes the bark can strip and peel, and occasionally it can make it all the way back to the main stem, which then creates a wound where disease can eventually enter. So usually what you want to do is make an undercut. The undercut basically stops any stripping from going past that cut that you made. Cut the main weight of the branch off. And then you have this short section that you can do a finishing cut on to make it nice and clean. Clear sign that you made a bad cut. Winter is when we do heavier structural pruning, like the branch removal you just saw.
That's pruning with intention.
There's no reason to leave stubs like that.
Bad cuts! Bad cuts!
Alert, alert! Especially trees in the winter is, there's very little sap and water flowing through the tree.
What does sap do for trees?
Sap is basically the transport material for nutrients and water throughout the tree.
January through March is prime time for deciduous trees and fruit trees in the Pacific Northwest.
The dormancy during this season allows us to better see the framework of the tree so we can make good long-term decisions.
Clean tools, correct angles, and knowing where to cut make all the difference.
Tree topping is one of the most dangerous pruning mistakes you can make. It invites decay and disease, creates weak branching structure, and can generally make very hazardous conditions. Good pruning makes healthy trees, bad pruning makes dangerous trees. Well, these are breaks up at the top of this tree. This is kind of the same end result of what tree topping does. It creates for a very chaotic future branching pattern that can, once these limbs get bigger, they can become hazardous, which ends up dropping large dead branches like this that can damage plants, damage property, and injure people. In general, when pruning, we have kind of a pruning budget for plants. Oftentimes that pruning budget, which is the amount of material you can take off before it starts harming the plant, generally it's around 25%, but we have some species that can tolerate a lot more. And with those species, we can do what we call radical renovation, which is where you end up cutting off a lot more of the plant. And that allows it to grow back kind of from the base, where you can give it some more structural cuts as it grows and shape it a bit more. One form of radical renovation is coppicing. Coppicing is when you basically cut all of the above ground material down to the soil level and let it resprout and grow back into a plant that you can shape.
Beautiful, Clark.
Winter is also a great time to prune your fern fronds. Oftentimes, as ferns age, the older fronds start laying down, they get caught up in the debris on the soil surface, and you can just go ahead and prune those back to the base of the plant, and you'll be left with this fresh flush of new fronds. Another thing to look out for when you're pruning in the winter are your young and small shrubs, especially the evergreen ones. You want to prune those a little bit less, if at all, during the winter to just allow them more time to establish and get a foothold in the soil. The leaves are what feed the shrubs, and for small evergreen shrubs, you don't want to cut too much of this material off because it won't be able to make enough energy to support its root system, and eventually in those cases, the plant can die. Winter is the best time to prune your cane shrubs, like this salmonberry here. You can see there's shoots coming up all throughout, and what you want to do with these is go find some of the oldest canes, cut those out, and leave room for new canes to come up and fill in the space. Herbaceous perennials are one of the first things you can prune in the late fall, early winter. Oftentimes they end up dying a little bit earlier than the rest of your plants. So you can cut off any dead flower heads like you've seen here. You can leave the stems if you want over the winter to provide habitat for beneficial insects. Or if you want, you can cut all of these stems off all the way down to the ground, pile them in a debris pile or compost them, and wait for your plant to come back to life in the spring. Oftentimes you can help beneficial insects and birds throughout the winter by leaving debris. You can leave debris in a couple different ways. You can leave stems standing on the plants like this. These stems are technically dying back, but they'll provide habitat for things like mason bees that can make their nests in woody, pithy stems. Or you can also, if you don't like this look, you can cut those off, bundle them like this, and then scatter them kind of in an area of your garden that is a bit out of sight, out of mind.
Beautiful.
So another thing you can prune in mid to late winter is your hydrangeas. Oftentimes by this time, the flowers will be dead and ready to be deadheaded, so where you prune all the flower heads off. But you can also do some structural pruning at this time. You're gonna wanna look for these buds here. You can see these have some pretty large swollen buds already. Even down lower, we have some really big ones. So those would be good places to prune to. So those are gonna be good branching points for future growth. But not all hydrangeas grow the same. This one is clearly ready to be pruned. It's got its buds popping. You can see where future growth is gonna come from. But we have another one over here, a panicle hydrangea. And as you start looking at it, there are very, very small buds, but they're not developed at all. And it can become a bit trickier to figure out exactly where to prune at this point. If we wait a few weeks as the spring weather starts kicking in, we'll be able to see those buds develop and you can make more informed cuts. Winter is also an ideal time to prune your grasses. Oftentimes grasses don't need to be pruned every year, but eventually they get to a height and an age where it's kind of nice to just restart them. Similar to coppicing, you can cut the whole thing all the way down to the ground and let the new blades regrow in the spring into a fresh flush of grass. If you don't want to cut the whole thing down and you want to be a bit more specific, you can look for some of the older, thicker stems, these stems that are starting to get kind of straw-like, and just selectively prune out which ones you want to remove.
If you're not sure how a plant responds to pruning, the best solution is simple. Look up the specific species, because professionals don't guess, they verify.
Winter pruning is one of the most important and effective tools we have as gardeners, but it needs to be done with intention. Prune smart and prune informed.
If you have any questions on what you should or shouldn't prune in the winter, leave us a question in the comments, and don't forget to like and subscribe.